Yeah. I think I did that on paper though. I think maybe they changed it.
Oh,
Well, it was a code of ethics, so
I thought. Well, I don't know. What do I know?
maybe that's different.
Yeah, I think it's different, but what do I know? You know, they'll Leroy will follow up if you're not
Yeah,
following
errant.
proper protocol.
Well, I did go
I
in
might
to
have to
talk to
mute
the
you.
clerk because I wondered about that, but when I went in, there was no one available, so I just left it on the desk. So
Ah, see, that's the reason, because if you had talked to somebody, they would have said, okay, raise your right hand.
okay. Well, it's easy to go back in.
Okay, 1 minute, folks. Please mute yourself.
Oops.
Okay, John, we are all set to go, according to Samantha Deal, who's in the background here supporting us.
Well, let me call the meeting to order. And, as always, the first item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. So would anybody like to add anything to the agenda? Okay, seeing nobody raising their hand to add anything. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
Also move.
Thank you, Tom. Can I hear a second? Okay, thank you, Bill. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, moving right along. Of course, the minutes. And so Lori's given us three options, but since we put all the work in to do the detailed minutes, would anybody like to make any additions or corrections to the detailed minutes? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes? Okay, thank you, Valerie. Do I see a second? Thank you, Courtney. And all in favor of approving the minutes, raise the hands. Okay, I guess this is the appropriate time for us to discuss Leroy's suggestion that we go to a condensed version. He was nice enough to actually give us a very condensed version and then a one pager and then a very detailed minutes. And so I know there was some feedback. A number of us kind of thought the middle version, which is kind of like the one pager, was pretty good, but we probably want to see what folks, what your preferences are. Does anybody have any thoughts on should we make Leroy's life easier, or and how abbreviated would people like to see the minutes? Any thoughts on that? Valerie, you're muted.
All right. They're recorded and available, right? So it would seem like a shorter version to save energy would be good because if you wanted an expanded version, you can go to it.
Yes, now, that's right. Even when we're in person, we're on cable, so there is a version that people can go and see every word that's said. So yeah, exactly. And I was actually surprised when Leroy mentioned in his email that legally we're not required to have minutes. That kind of surprised me, but so Valerie, are you suggesting then? Yeah, you suggested the condensed version would be good.
Yes.
Kendra.
So I like the middle version. Just a little bit of information more than the condensed version. Sorry, Leroy. Thank you for all the options, but I think it's helpful just to kind of go through the different categories real quickly, and then we can look at it if need be with more detail.
Tom?
Yeah, I would agree with Kendra. I do like the middle version as well. I think it gives us a little bit more than the condensed version, but it gives us kind of the flavor of what happened at the meeting without going into a lot of the detail. So my personal preference would be the middle version as well.
Yeah, Courtney?
I have different devices and I never know where the buttons are on each of them. I would agree. The purpose of meeting minutes, even though maybe not required for the commission, is to have that historical record, right? And even though we have it, we do have it recorded. I know for me, I have all the intentions of watching every planning commission meeting, and it's hard to do sometimes. So having the footnotes or the cliff notes is helpful, so that somewhat historical written record, but certainly not putting as much energy and effort as you have been, Leroy. I think you can do just as good a job in a condensed version.
Any other? Bill?
Yeah, I support the condensed version, given that the recordings are available. In the instance that we do have a public hearing for a wetland use permit application, we'll probably want to be a little bit more formal, but in general, I think something that recalls generally the outlines of the meeting and the decisions that were made is appropriate.
Well, let's see, any further comments? It seems like there's Ned.
I just wanted to comment that at the risk of having Leroy come over to my house and do bad things to me, what would be really cool would be, I like the middle version. That's basically one line per sort of item. But it is true, sometimes the meetings can go 2 hours. And so what would be really nice, I don't know if, since I didn't go back and watch the meetings, I don't know if this is in sort of chronological order of the meeting, but if there were any way to include at least sort of rough timeline, that would help make the use of this outline form the most efficient, I think, because it would allow us to go to the recording, but not necessarily have to filter through 2 hours or whatever it is to find the items. Yeah. It might just be a matter of when you sort of write down the item at that point in the meeting, just to look at the clock, and not necessarily filter through the whole tape yourself again. But Leroy, I also think Leroy's time is worth much more than that. He's done so many other important things. So
it would take a lot more than that to get me to come beat you up, Ned.
Oh, I don't know. I'll find another song to mess up.
But I hear Luca's good with a bat. So, but
no, it's more dangerous than that. Annika's in my class now. She sits right in the front, and I have to.
I do want to
keep my nose clean.
Samantha, who does a lot of work in the background, does match the agenda with the recording. So that is a nice. If you go to the meeting, check that out. I think you'll find it a useful guide as you're trying to hone in on the agenda item. But sorry, Anna, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add, I like the middle version. I was wondering if we wanted to, and I should know if this is included in other meetings minutes, but I can't think of it, but having a next steps or to do area of the agenda, just so that's top of mind, what we've committed to doing between meetings could be helpful.
It's a great idea.
That's a good suggestion. Yeah.
I love
Yep.
that idea.
Courtney?
Oh, I have a quick question. Leroy, and other boards and meetings I'm on, the clerk staff is the one taking the minutes, right? It's not necessarily the clerk herself or the other, chairs or, so would it be possible that we could get assistance for you, or would that even be something you'd want, or is that even not even a question?
Yeah, if I could, I believe that many of the boards and commissions are staffed by other departments, parks and planning, and their staff typically, I think, take that role.
I see.
Yeah,
I
and we're very fortunate to have Leroy providing that staff support to this commission. So, but the connection with home TV is a good one.
I'm not opposed to that. When I hinted to Deb Guthrie that I might be looking for some help, I think she had a little streak of violence across her eyes because she's real protective of her staff people who are already kind of overcommitted. But she also did mention that when they do minutes, they just do a very condensed version. So they just if they discuss an issue for an hour, they put discussion. That's about as much. But I love the idea of something that's useful. Anna's suggestion is great, but I would also rely on you to continue to edit and add things that I might not have picked up on that you see on your to-do list. I'll try and get that out to you quickly so it's fresh in your brains. Thank you for the input on this.
Well, Kendra.
Thank you. I love Anna's idea, by the way. The next steps is a super good idea. There's closed captioning on this, right? Isn't there a way to somehow have that come out and then you can pick sentences out of it? I mean, I'm not super smart when it comes to stuff, but is that possible to make life a little bit simpler for you and not have to watch everything back?
It's actually more work because there's not really, it's just a bunch of words and not necessarily sorted. So it's actually more work, I think. But this is an experiment. So if you don't like how it's working out, I'll kind of take your ideas to heart, and then we'll just kind of learn as we go here. But that's a nice idea. It would seem like closed captioning would be helpful, and the way it shows up on the screen, it is helpful for people who have a challenge of hearing, because you see it in synchronicity. But just when you get a big garble of words, it's not quite as easy to sort through.
There seems to be a consensus that kind of Leroy's middle version, which is like one page or maybe a little more, is the acceptable way to proceed in the future. So is there anybody who has any objections to that or concerns? Okay, I think that's it then. Okay, moving on. We have a period for public comment. Is there anybody on the phone or wherever who would like to make a public comment? Okay, hearing nothing. Moves along to new business, and we have wetland outreach and awareness. And not sure, is Kendra, would you like to bring us up to date, or is there somebody else that maybe wants to provide some updates on what's going on? I know some meetings have been, looks like Courtney, are you volunteering?
Kendra's had a lot of conversation with wetlands today, so I promised I would help facilitate.
Good.
So yes, I will just give a little brief. We discussed as a group potentially having a wetland education, maybe campaign, if you will. I think that word came up a couple times. And I think in our work group discussions, the reason that we came to that conclusion that might be a great idea is to get ahead of some of these complaint-based ordinance issues, right? The staff's being tasked with following up on complaints, but we're really not getting ahead of it. And we think the best way we could do that is create this awareness amongst the community, and the community's more aware of, the purpose of wetlands, the importance of wetlands, and that we actually have this ordinance. And here's why we have this ordinance. The natural vegetation buffer does this, does that, all the, kind of go through why we have the ordinance and why it's important. So we talked, Leroy thankfully got us a meeting with Brandy, our communications director, and Kendra, Leroy, myself, and Emma, who's our naturalist through the Parks Department, to maybe see what Brandy's ideas could be and how maybe we could approach this where it could be, holistic. I know there's a lot of groups right now doing different things related to wetlands, and Leroy made a good point. We should continue that momentum, but maybe come up with a more solidified plan. So in talking with her today, she had some great ideas. Of course, that's, she's an expert, and that's why we have her. But what she conveyed and made sense to me was that wetlands are a very complex and complicated issue, right? It's not just one thing. There's so many things that fall in there that overlap with other environmental issues, including environmental justice. So she said what might be helpful is to create a timeline and pick out some main topics that we might want to cover over a timeline, so that we're actually kind of focusing on a topic and then using different media to get that information out. So I thought we thought that was a pretty good idea, and was hoping that we could maybe use the commission to help us identify what topics out of the ordinance and or out of the community or out of the environmental component of it that we think would be important, or that you've heard could be important, or people want to know. And then in addition to that, thought, for me, I heard all the things that are already going on. Like Emma's working on wetland information during parks, or at parks and land preservations now. It's like this is already happening. So maybe we could brainstorm to know what's already out there, who's working on what, and how can we cross collaborate to promote both. Kendra gave a good example today at Harris Nature Center. We could be there handing out wetland brochures when we're doing native plant sales, because they go hand in hand, right? So that cross, I guess departmental will be cross program I'm losing words today. Promotion could help, both us and help native plants and help Harris Nature Center. So I think, Leroy, you and I had a little conversation too, that we feel that maybe that's the best way for us to use the commission's time. Then we can work with Brandy, develop this, somewhat more of a solidified plan over time, and knowing that it's not going to start right away, because it's going to take time to create some of these different medias, and then use your guys' information, all your information, and then bring that back to Brandy, and then we can create a plan and bring it back to the commission for, input and approval. Leroy, Kendra?
Yeah, I think you.
Sorry, thanks, Courtney.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Lori. So thanks for kind of summarizing that up. And I think about things in relationship to timeliness. And if we look at all the flooding, that we've been experiencing too, and helping people, we want to work on protecting folks from flooding and damage and all of that kind of stuff. So how we can harness like things that are happening, currently, to help protect folks, right? Because the big rains that we've had this year, we're going to continue to get more of those big rains. And there's still places that are flooded from the 5.5 inches or 8 inches from a couple of weeks ago, right? That we got in a 6-hour period of time. So, how do we look at, doing stuff that is timely and preventative as well? And lots of ideas about that.
So are you, according to your suggestion, right now, we spend some time kind of identifying those major topics, areas that should be part of the schedule, the plan?
Leroy, I think you had some thoughts on this.
Yeah, that was one. What are some of the things coming up, the issues, the topics, the concerns that might fit into that timeline? I really like the idea of sort of tapping your collective creativity and brainstorming. So there's no judgment on any ideas that you might have, but just a little bit of maybe time-limited brainstorming to just get all the ideas on the table that we can sort of take back and fit into a timeline and more of a plan, and then feed that back to you for additional ideas.
Well, I think this is very important, and so I think we need to give it at least 10 minutes, and if we're going strong, maybe even more. But yeah, why don't we get started? And you know, if we get to, I've got 7:20 now, we get to 7:30, and we're kind of running out of ideas. We can stop it at then, but or continue. But go ahead. What do people think? What would you like to throw out? Annette?
Well, I sort of echo what Kendra said. I really think that one of the things that we just happen to be at a moment where people have been reminded of the impacts of heavy duty rain dump, and what I really wanted, I think would be important, would be to think of ways to help the community not ask, how do I build more curb and gutter to direct the water not into my basement, instead to ask more globally, more at least locally, in terms of maintaining wetlands to maintain the resilience of the land, rather than, so really acknowledging that the amount of development we've already seen has hugely enhanced the impervious surface and so forth. And so I think there's an opportunity here, because I know quite a few people who ended up with water in their basement, and I'm sure you all do too. And so that kind of, highlighted the value of being resilient. Anyway.
Very good point. Yeah. Okay, other thoughts, questions, comments, priorities? Bill?
Yeah, thanks. I'm very much on the same track. I think there's the issue of stormwater is crucial to the township. It's part of our climate sustainability plan. And we're very fortunate to have a county drain commissioner who is kind of leading the field in dealing with increasing stormwater and the things that stormwater brings into our rivers and lakes. And there are some really big projects going on within the township right now, including stuff up around Lake Lansing and more recently on the Daniels Drain right there at Walden Pond. Some of which includes constructed wetlands to trap sediment coming from runoff, and that's one of the things that we like to see. So the Drain Commissioner's Office produced some really good materials on the Daniels Drain project and on a couple of others, Tower Gardens and others, and those might be really good resources for the township to be able to draw on in an educational campaign. So those are my thoughts.
Others, other thoughts? One thing too, I'd like to just, when I think in terms of education too, I kind of think in terms that you can't assume people know anything. And so, and I think you have to kind of repeat the real basics, like, I was surprised that we have 25% of the township is wetlands, and that, I knew we had a wetlands ordinance, but I'm sure a whole bunch of people don't know that. And so, I think some of the real basic stuff needs to be periodically repeated in some different media to get out to folks that we have a lot of wetlands. They're important. We have an ordinance. We have certain requirements, and just kind of get that message out to people that, and then further, maybe that will help them when we send different, more specific messages. Yeah. Other thoughts, comments about what should be kind of included in this plan? Courtney?
I'm not going to take any credit for this, but Kendra and I have been working on, a wetland action plan. So she put quite a few ideas in here. And one of many things that I liked was kind of did it seasonally, right? So we're talking about stormwater management and when we have rains, but also, like in fall, how, talking about dumping in wetlands.
Hmm.
You know, when people are, you know, getting rid of their lawn waste, or in spring, you know, the plant sale she had mentioned. So some of those things too, just I thought, it would, I as a resident would think that would be pertinent to me at that time. Like, oh, I'm mowing my lawn and there's a wetland over here. I didn't realize, you know. So I thought maybe things like that seasonally were also pretty interesting.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. That's how you get people's attention, when you kind of hit them at the right time, right? Yeah. Other kind of thoughts, comments.
Just briefly, one idea, Sarah Verhey came to our meeting this morning and she was saying that working with youth groups might be really helpful, because a lot of our environmental awareness is instilled in our when we're young, and if we could think about ways to work with the youth. Now, we had a nice contingent come out this weekend, Bernadette and Audrey and others, kind of doing some interactive projects with kids and adults. But if we don't have to come up with all the ideas tonight, but if you have ideas of how to reach youth, especially if you are a youth, that would be helpful. Or timing of you know, lesson plans or curricula, things like that might fit in as well. Brandy brought up that it's World Wetlands Day coming up in February, so that might be another thing to put on the calendar.
Yes,
Okay.
I think I saw Annika raise her hand first. Go ahead, Annika, and then.
I was just wondering if you guys were thinking of like having more green fairs like at different times of the season. Like, would that help? Or maybe like a social media campaign. We're thinking though.
And what'd you say in the very beginning? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I wasn't sure if you guys were considering like having more environmental like green fairs, like what we had last weekend. If that would help.
Yeah, I think that's you know, especially if there's someone who wants to even just have a booth or an activity. Tom, the market manager, really wants to have more stuff there. You could organize. That could be something that maybe you guys organize, or we try and do once a month. But any idea is fair game. So we're kind of brainstorming now, but I think it's going to take us each following up on what inspires us and what we want to spend time on.
Yeah, Luca, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we had an amazing turnout today at Earth Club. It was our first meeting, and we had like somewhere around like 40 to 60 people, and it was insane packing that many people into a classroom. And we've never had more than like 15 to 20 before. So it was an insane turnout, and so I think, you know, bringing a lot of this stuff into the Earth Club is definitely going to help, especially with the amount of people we have this year.
Yeah, I think we're in a envious position in that we have so many of you here involved with the Earth Club in Okemos High School. So you obviously you make this all possible, and we appreciate your feedback. But also, I know that you can kind of spread the word to your the Earth Club and other fellow students what the Environmental Commission is talking about and why we think wetlands are important, and that's a two-way street. And Anna, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, I guess I was just thinking, what are the top actions that we want people to take, right? Like, I'd like to, I mean, I think it would be easier for me to think through, well, what do we want to educate on, if I had a clearer sense myself of, so what is it that we want people to do? And then think through, well, once we know, like, what is it that we want people to do, what are some of those mechanisms to changing their behavior, right? Like, certainly education, you know, connecting with people's values. I liked, you know, when we were talking, I mean, values is good. Also, I like, you know, it's like if we could connect what we want people to do with, like, and then your basement won't flood, right? Like, I know I'm thinking about, how do I get my basement not to flood? So I guess that's, you know, and maybe we can have a discussion at some point. I mean, I'm sure you know, some of you have a much clearer sense than I do on what that is, but I'm just wondering if it's worth talking through, well, what are like like, if we want behavior change, like what are those major behavior changes we want that the average person can do that is going to help us with our, you know, preserving wetlands?
Yeah, good, very good points. Valerie?
Well, I was just going to say, if something concise could be prepared, like packaged and then offered to the Green Neighbor Network, because I think, and on flooding and tying it into wetlands in particular, I think that would be an easy draw. I think it would be an easy thing to either share by email or when you have your next meeting to, if it's a video or whatever it is, to show that and talk about it. And in fact, and maybe not everybody has, you know, a wetland. They probably don't in their yard or, but they may in their subdivision. So to Anna's point, maybe include something like, you know, you may not have a wetland, but you could be planting maybe one of this list of flowers that also helps or something. I don't know, something concise that can be given and easily utilized and disseminated by the network that we've, I guess, created and are trying to encourage to grow.
You know, to the, I mean, it's because a number of comments have been made that there are people that are kind of abusing the wetlands, and some of it may be out of ignorance and some of it may because people don't care. I think if you end up having a community that basically understands the value of wetlands, hopefully you can provide some, let's call it peer pressure, so that people know that, you know, the community values their wetlands and they're important, you know, we help prevent those flooding problems. Because, yeah, you know, it's, we've discussed this before. If we have to, the people who are, let's say, abusing the wetlands, you know, yeah, we can think in terms of enforcement, but which is fine, but also peer pressure is also helpful too. That, you know, people say, yeah, you know, I just learned that, you know, we shouldn't be dumping things next to the wetland, and you know they're talking to their neighbor, and the neighbor goes, okay, maybe I should stop doing that. You know, one question I've got is too. I wonder, is there a wetland in the township that is kind of like a, something that was, I don't know, a big one, a popular one, something that, you know, kind of shows people in a kind of a obvious way what a wetland is? Is there one or more than one that you can say this is kind of an important prime wetland in the township? I couldn't point to one.
I guess the one that comes to my mind is the one surrounding or by Lake Lansing itself that feeds into the lake. And, you know, the connection between the wetland and the lake there.
Oh, good. Oh, okay.
I'm going to
Yeah,
share.
when I ride around the lake, I mean, there's water even weeks after a substantial rain. There's water flowing in from there. So I mean, it really highlights this sort of ability of wetlands to slow the rush. I think that's another wetland I would nominate for as a treasure in the township is the one that's on the north side of the interurban trail. You know, there, as I'm riding to work, many days I see people out there looking at the birds, taking photos, whatever it is, or just plain walking, but enjoying it. And I think that it's a pretty big area. It's a little weird because there are a lot of big trees there, and so it may not have been a wetland, at least in this form, in its aboriginal state. But anyway, for now it is, and there's a lot of wildlife that comes through.
Well, Lake Lansing itself is the source of it is as a wetland, right? It doesn't have a spring or it. I mean, I think there, according to the extension class I took on inland lakes, that you know, lakes can be formed by springs or you know, rivers or whatever, and there's several that are just made out of wetlands, and that's what Lake Lansing is. So
yeah,
that's
Lake
kind
Lansing
of,
is just runoff. That's right.
yeah.
Oh, we've gone, yeah, Kendra.
So kind of to Anna's point, there are simple do's and don'ts, so those deep rooted vegetations are helpful, and, trees are in wetlands, like they're, there's trees that are in wetlands as well. So if you want to look at the simple do's and don'ts, having natural vegetation that has those deep roots that are going to soak up that water is helpful. Relation to, favorite wetlands or ones to highlight. I mean, we have all kinds of land preserves, and I'm sure people have certain favorite ones. And I know Emma can most certainly highlight a lot of them. But, a big treasure in our township is the lake and preserving the lake. And, I'll talk a little bit about that when I talk about land preservation later on. But, I know she's going through and cataloging the different preserves, and we'll highlight different ones at different times, I think. But it's nice that people have mentioned different ones. So I think that we most certainly will be able to come up with a list of, we already have a list of simple do's and don'ts on the wetland brochure, but we can come up with more of them to help educate people on what they can do to help protect themselves against flooding and protect our environment as well.
Can I suggest one other item that could get sort of community member concern or at least interest up a little bit? Just last night, Susan Maston organized a presentation on the subject of groundwater and the testing program that had been done throughout Ingham County and then out into Bath, et cetera. And so it was interesting to see the patterns of change. So basically we compared the groundwater testing that had happened in 1983 to current ones. And for the most part, things are pretty good. The quality of the water that we get in our municipally is very good. But this was testing, what was it, Bill? Something like 300 wells in Ingham County. Most, regular old homeowners' wells. And the one thing that really stood out to me was this really bright spot of chloride up where the intersection, one of the exits to 69 is. And so, I'm not sure if we can reach so far as to actually make people think, well, maybe we should use less salt. But that's where it comes from. And that sense that, what goes on the ground does end up in our water system is a kind of I don't know, it should catch people's attention. We don't have John here telling us to pick up the poop anymore, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's see, we've talked about 15 minutes, and a lot of good ideas have come out. Any parting thoughts or comments before we move on? Tom?
Yeah, this isn't so much on topics, but just a couple of ideas on how to get the word out. And I know the township sends out tax bills twice a year, and I wonder if something could be included with that. Maybe the wetland brochure that's been put together could be printed and mailed out with those tax bills. And then also, I think this has been brought up previously in other meetings, but maybe just a section on the township website that focuses just on wetlands and as we've discussed already, the kind of the do's and don'ts. And then finally, just I know with working with the state a lot, Eagle does a lot of educational webinars, and I was wondering if maybe that might be an avenue to educate people and do some free webinars on various topics regarding wetlands. So just a couple of thoughts in that regard.
Yeah, those are good thoughts. And the township, you got the property tax bills going out and the water bills too. And so that,
Right.
the water bills, provide an opportunity too. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move, unless somebody has, Anna, go ahead.
I just have one other thing. I wanted to echo what I can't remember if it was Annika or Bernadette said about the potential for a social media campaign. I think that could be great, you know, to come up with some, I mean, even if we have simple tips, right? Like, you know, put one out each day and you know, ask folks to reshare it, you know, come up with a hashtag that, you know, for the social media campaign for the wetlands. I think especially, you know, I'm sure the youth clubs could help us get the word out, and that's a great way to communicate to younger folks. And you know, we have, you know, not just like, you know, Facebook and other things like that, but you know, the neighborhood apps and various other ones where if we could, you know, make some, you know, sample posts, right? We could send those out in the Green Gazette and ask everyone who gets those to please, you know, post this and use our hashtag on social media and really, you know, just try to drum up some, you know, yeah, some hype around the issue.
Yeah. Bernadette, go ahead.
Also another idea to get like youth involved. A lot of high schoolers especially are like involved in NHS, which is like the National Honor Society. And a lot of them like want hours for their society. So I think like one idea could maybe be like somehow like volunteering with the wetlands so they get to know the wetlands and stuff and also learn about them. And then they also get hours. And I know that a lot of kids will probably be interested in it because yeah, it gets the word out, I guess. So
Good idea. Very good. Yeah, Luca.
Also being a member of NHS, and I have a lot of friends who are members of NHS, I definitely like agree with Bernadette, and I didn't even think about that, but if I did have an opportunity to volunteer by helping through with the wetlands, like I would take it, and I know a lot of my friends would also take it.
Courtney.
Yeah, last thought, and speaking to Anna, all of those fantastic ideas. So when we were talking to Brandy, you know, she has all the mechanisms to be able to do those types of all the media, right? So if we can get her the topics that we would like to focus on, she will help us do all of those things you're talking about, which I think, you know, it's got to be multimedia. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of just maybe end with that this is all really good to take back to her. And I know she can help us delineate how to do it. If we tell her what she needs to know, what we want, what do we want, what's our message, and then she'll help us get it out there. So I appreciate all of that. And to the NHS members, they do have a wetland cleanup day in the coming up that Emma just mentioned. So we'll make sure you guys know about that. You can pass that along. Apparently they pulled how many 1,500 pounds of trash out of our wetlands in one day. So yeah, I bet that Emma would be appreciative of all of you folks, all those students that would want to help.
Okay, any final thoughts? Okay, let's move along on the agenda. I think this has been really helpful, the discussion. Where there's nothing under old business, chair's report, I'll just mention that you know, a number of us have been participating in the Capital Area Sustainability Partnership. I'm on the renewable subgroup and the codes ordinance subgroup. And I think it's, I'm very optimistic that it will be helpful, and that certainly it's good to see that our township has such good participation, at least in the two subgroups that I've been participating in. So I think that's good in many ways. We can get some information about what's going on in the region. We can share with some of the things we're doing. And also it speaks well for how green our community is, that we have such good participation. That's it, which leads us to the staff report.
Well, kind of to follow up, I'd like to be as brief as John, but I'll try not to go more than 30, 40 minutes here. No, seriously. One of the things that was mentioned at the meeting with Brandy was this Think Green Thursday. So Andrea Smiley tries to put together an environmental blurb on social media every Thursday. And I've come up with a couple of them, but I would just delegate each of you to, if there's a topic that interests you, just write up a paragraph. If you're into hashtags, put a couple hashtags on it. If there's a picture that goes with it, send it along. And then maybe a link for more information. And then we'll just feed our media department something that they can use and recycle. So I'll just challenge you to, between now and our next meeting, if you come up with a paragraph on anything that strikes you. It could be turtles, or it could be wetlands, or energy, climate change. Maybe you've already got something that you could just pull out. It would also help me. Oh, go ahead, Anna.
Oh, I was just, I'm sorry, did I miss this? Who does that go out to?
It goes out to like 7,000 people on their weekly social media. I would like to know what the number of hits are for those posts, and I'll try and find that out. But I'm pretty sure it's over 1,000 people that it'll go out to. So just think about taking your message to 1,000 people. What would you want to share? The Green Gazette goes out once a month to about 1,600 people, and about 30% might read part of it. But some of this could be useful and repeatable in the Green Gazette. So that's just one little piece kind of related to this campaign. We did get a recycling grant in recycling infrastructure grant with help from the Spicer Group and Derek. Reclaimed by Design and Midmiac was helpful in identifying building materials as something that we might want to get better at capturing at our recycling center. So that's close to a $500,000 grant to construct a pole barn and get some additional equipment. We're hoping that Granger is going to add some compactors, and so pretty exciting. We'll find out probably before our next meeting, so keep you posted on that. And then we can talk more about the Green Fair later. And then we've got the recycling event, the electronics event coming up in September 18th. And if you can volunteer for that, I'll try and put a link in the chat window. If you haven't had a chance to sign up, you can share that with your friends too. And thank you for all of you that passed the word on that. So that's my 6-minute update.
Leroy, and moving along to teams and study groups and boards and commissions. Board of Trustees is up first. Courtney, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Just a couple things. I think many know that we're reviewing and going to discuss the budget next Tuesday. So I'll have a close eye on there for any help we can get Leroy. No, I'm just kidding. Any opportunities for environmental endeavors, and if you guys think of anything, or you want me to make an ask or anything like that to at least consider it, please just shoot me an email. So that's a really important next steps for the board. Also, the community survey results are, the data collection is completed. Now the data analysis is not done, so we haven't necessarily seen the results, but coming close to an end there, which I think will be really exciting and really give us some input on what the community needs are and maybe what their focus is on environmental issues as well. I think, Ned, was it you referring to who Susan had a presentation on Ingham County's groundwater management?
Yeah, last night.
Yeah, so that's fantastic to know. So I'm the board liaison for the groundwater management board. And so they're also at a statewide level, the geological survey is being updated too. So they're going through and not just testing, but identifying and where all of our wells are, mostly residential wells, but there's some public wells as well. So I think those are great. And I think you mentioned it was 1980 was the last time we updated any of that. So I think that's really important. So we'll get some good information, I think, from that. It's going to take some time, but they're working on it. Other than that, that's all I have right now.
Courtney, and Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, Ned.
No meetings. The last meeting was supposed to happen, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Something like that anyway, but then Tim sent out a note saying we didn't have critical mass. I guess enough people were far away that, anyway, it didn't happen. So, but the building, of course, continues to happen over here on the corner of Marsh Road and Lake Lansing Road. Hazlitt Road. This gas station is being updated and so forth. So I've unfortunately, a number of people have said to me that, wow, that looks like it's going to be ugly. But it was we didn't design it, of course, but we were part of the discussion. I mean, we didn't have the opportunity to say you can design it differently, but anyway, it does seem to come very close to the corner. I don't know how many people have driven that past here recently.
It's not what we're used to.
It's not what we're used to. That's exactly right.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you, Ned. And Land Preservation Advisory Board.
I'll try to be brief because my neighbor's mowing. So the Land Preservation Advisory Board met on August 25th to review the Land Preservation Code, particularly related to Lake Lansing South, which is really important for the health of Lake Lansing. So looking at educating residents on the Land Preservation Advisory Code, including the no-mow code, which is kind of funny given my neighbor's mowing right now, appropriately so. But anyways, there's going to be education, fencing, and then hopefully that will work and there won't have to move to enforcement.
Okay, Kendra, can I ask a question about LPAB? So, some of you know that although I don't think my voice actually made any difference, but for the last 10 years, I've had sort of a bee in my bonnet about wanting to make sure that the township had signage that highlighted our assets, things like the interurban trail and so forth. But it would be sort of interesting if the signs on some of the land preservation areas, and especially the wetland ones, highlighted not just, this is such and such an area, but here are some of the ecosystem benefits, ecosystem services that these areas provide. It's essentially a little bit of education, hopefully catching people at the moment when they're already thinking, oh, I think I'll go for a walk in the woods. So just a thought about signage again. We have these wonderful assets, and helping people not only appreciate them, but also recognize them as models for further positive action. Seems like a good idea to me.
Yes, it is, and Emma is working on it. So there's some sign, we were just talking about it earlier today. She sent some signs my way. So it is, it's working on getting those opportunities to educate the community in different spots. But, Emma's one person and there's a lot of work to be done. So I'll pass it along that there's more community support for that.
I don't know. Sometimes she seems like a tornado. She's amazing.
Yeah, Planning Commission.
Yeah, thanks. Just to tag on the last item, I did use the new boardwalk from the old farmers market over to the pond there the other day, and noticed some really nice signage about the wildlife that's in that. So I really high quality stuff that's being produced by the Parks Department. The last meeting of the Planning Commission was a joint meeting with Township Board, really about updating our ordinances, specifically the mixed use plan unit development, and then down the road form-based code. And I won't bore anybody with any more of that this evening. I'm happy to take questions, but I am not prepared to lecture on either of those topics.
Okay, yeah, that's yes. I'm sure it would take a while. Yeah. Okay, thank you. moving along, Transportation Commission. Anything to report on that?
The only item I would bring to this group is that there's a renewed energy around safe routes to school, helping find ways for kids to get to school without necessarily getting in a car or on a bus. And that seems to be tracking with this renewed energy that we see around Earth clubs and things, and that's all wonderful. And I always hoping to make connections so that the township is kind of each hand knows what the other is doing in terms of reaching out to the schools, because I think this is a moment where we're seeing a lot more good connections, and that really makes me happy.
And next on our agenda is the Earth Club or student groups, and we heard that the first meeting was a lot of students came out. Anything any of you would like to add about what's going on at Earth Club or yes, Bernadette?
So yeah, we had our first meeting today, and we kind of just like talked about like what we'll be doing this year, and also we like kind of tried to have like people share different ideas as like what we could do. So that's kind of what we did. It was mostly just like a getting to know you day, but yeah, we're starting to try and brainstorm ideas for this year.
Okay, super. Let's see, moving on to the energy team has been discussing three things. One is, we got the virtual solar and sustainable tour coming up on in October. October 2nd is October 2nd. Yeah, I guess would be the kind of the start of it. So we're talking about that, and then we're talking about the possibilities at the township hall with respect to solar arrays. In our ongoing efforts to become 100% renewable energy for township operations. And then we're also talking about, the Solarized Meridian program and how we might implement a program to help homeowners and businesses, learn about solar energy and get hopefully a group discount. So those are the three topics that are kind of ongoing that we're continuing to kind of discuss and kind of plan. So let's see, the environmental justice.
So I'll say about environmental justice today is, we're already kind of talking about that in relationship to the wetlands and flooding. And I think that's just an important place for us to focus our energy at the current moment. So that's about as much as I'll say about it tonight.
All right, what's up with the green infrastructure grant?
Not a lot. I've got I think Montessori is pretty much done with their project. I sent Bridget Booth a request for an update on the Hazlet, but I don't have anything. But I'm hoping that they will come and present at a future meeting here, maybe at the Green Dialogue.
It would be nice too, because both Hazlet and Montessori are obviously they're physical. I know I'd be interested in kind of coming for a short tour, and maybe other members of the Environmental Commission might be interested in doing that if that wasn't too much of a burden on the schools. I mean, that would be nice to, have a quick and dirty kind of tour of what they did.
On a related note, I did offer Bridget Bill's worm bin, which he was interested maybe in connecting with the schools. And since she hasn't claimed it yet, I guess if there's another school that's interested, potentially could claim that worm bin. Thank you, Bill. And Sarah, who showed up as an active worm bin, she offered to bring it to the Green Fair this weekend, but we thought it might be too stressful for the worms.
They don't want to get much attention. Bill, I think you raised your hand. Did you have something you'd like to say? Oh no, you're shaking your head. Okay. Okay.
I did want to just mention, I don't know if Audrey had anything to add to Bernadette's recap of the Earth Club or other student groups, but she was certainly very helpful at the Green Fair this past weekend. Or Luca, you're muted, but if you want to say something, feel free to chime in.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we had our first Earth Club meeting today. It was crazy. There were like so many people. We're thinking of making different committees. I know this is as a committee, you guys are gonna love this. We're planning on making some committees within Earth Club if the same kind of attendance keeps up. And so hopefully we can have a few groups that like can work on like wetland education or connecting up and being at the green fairs and overall just like public education and anything else. And we'll encourage more people to come to these kinds of meetings as well. But yeah, our first Earth Club meeting went well, and I'm excited for more of them.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Green neighbors. Leroy, do you have anything you'd like to mention? Neighbors or?
I don't have anything to report on.
Okay, and green team.
Well, I started to say that we had a nice turnout for the Green Fair. We had several people here tonight. Anna Colby was there. Bernadette pulled together some really fun activities, and I'm sure she had help from Audrey and others. It was a great chance to talk to folks from Granger, from consumers. Jeff Myron was there, and I shared some pictures in the latest Green Gazette. But Bernadette or Audrey, do you want to, or Valerie was there, or Anna, do you want to add anything? Or Tom, being on the green team. Tom's one of our more active members.
Yeah, unfortunately, I missed the Green Fair this weekend. I had guests up north, but sorry I missed that. But as Leroy mentioned earlier, we do have the electronics recycling event coming up pretty soon. Actually, it's September 18th. So hopefully we'll have another good turnout like we had last year at that event.
Great, and if the Student Earth Club wants to do a booth at the mall between now and in September or October, be happy to help network with Tom and others on our green team to help, with the logistics. Go ahead, Bernadette.
I was just gonna say like that the green fair went well. We gave out like a lot of flyers, and also a lot of kids actually came to like, well, I guess like next to us was the Girl Scouts group. And a lot of people were coming to Girl Scouts and then coming to us because they saw like the youth activities. So we did like rock painting, which a lot of kids liked. And Audrey also made like bag like post-it like envelope stuff, which she brought like stamps, and like kids were like stamping all of the envelopes and stuff, which they liked as well. So yeah, that worked well because a lot of the kids would come over and like do all the arts and crafts, and we could like talk to their parents about our different organizations. And we also, I was able to have the Chippewa Middle School Climate Change Club come. So they were like the middle schoolers were there, and they were kind of like helping bring in other people as well. And yeah.
Super. Anything related to the tree team? Do we? Okay.
I'll just say something real quick about the tree team. I mean, I was talking about Relief, Michigan. I think that's just a kind of fun,
right.
Yeah, measuring, diameters of trees and all that kind of stuff. I think Bill mentioned the meetings ago, about having another tree planting and getting people engaged out in the community again and care about wetlands. Maybe we could have a tree planting, natural vegetation buffer, event, maybe springish or something like that, maybe. I don't know. Or fallish. But that's all I have on that.
Okay. Anything related to the further about the Capital Area Sustainability Partnership or activities of the state of Michigan? Anything to kind of share on either of those topics? Like I had mentioned about the capital area sustainability partnership, it's at an early stage, but I think it's going well. And I know a number of you have been participating, so if you want to share anything.
I would, at the Green Dialogue this morning, I just shared, maybe everybody already knows anyway, that the state, the Michigan Solutions on Climate, however that goes, the initiative that the governor started, that they're in 5 groups, and I think their recommendations are supposed to be available soon, like within a few weeks, what each of the groups are suggesting. So that will be helpful. I know, like on the transportation group, it's sort of not taking off, and it could be because it's sort of the initial volunteers are now working on the state level or something. I'm not sure, but I suggested to Cliff, and Bill, I wonder what you think, that maybe the scope should be reduced a bit, and maybe talk about the things like pass and bike pass, water pass, maybe do more of a regional focus on trying to pull that together a little more, instead of it appeared to be some duplication, but I don't know, those are just some mental meanderings, I guess, for whatever it's worth. But it doesn't, people aren't responding to get the first meeting even going. So but I think the other ones are going well, as far as I know, the other 4 groups. So
Yeah, I think one problem that is happening these days, because I see it with scheduling with the Capital Area Sustainability Partnership, is that you have a lot of activity going on, and some of the people that should be involved in all these different groups, there's just not enough time. And so I think that's creating problems with scheduling and maybe participation for some of the groups too. So that's kind of challenging. I mean, a lot needs to be done, but yeah, getting it, yeah.
and it may be relying on a heavy percentage of staff people, maybe cast. So they're already maxed out, I would assume, with their jobs and their extra volunteer, and then they probably have young families, so I don't know if that's what's going on there or not, but I wondered.
Yeah, we have anything further for the good of the cause, and we have this as an opportunity for public comments too, if anybody from the public would like to say anything. But any further thoughts before we adjourn? Comments? Yes, Leroy.
I just want to reiterate, if you've got an idea for a Think Green Thursday, that would help Andrea put something together. So send a paragraph or even just a topic idea. Also, Bill gave me the idea this morning at the dialogue that something my kids used to do every so often was have a wacky hair day in their classroom. And if we do that for one of our upcoming Environmental Commission meetings, we might get some more viewers.
Oh, okay.
So I just challenge you to think of your hairstyle for our next meeting and surprise us.
Leroy, I don't have a lot left up here. I don't know if that would be very challenging, but thank you for that idea.
A wig.
I'm here to please.
A wig. Oh, there you go.
Hats are fair game. Yep.
Okay. Oh, okay. Here we go. Oh boy, here we go. Well, thank you everybody for participating. Oh, we need a motion to adjourn. Bill. Okay, second. Ned. We have a third from Kendra. A fourth from Courtney. All in favor. Hey, thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good week. Take care.
Thank you.